This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Hello Turkaholics and welcome back to Football a la Turca. It's been a good while again, but football is slowly but surely starting back up. Of course, the Bundesliga started 2 weeks ago, I think now, and Turkey is soon to be next in not this weekend, but the weekend after that, the weekend of the 12th of June. The Turkish Super League will be returning, and that's what we're going to be talking about, that and a couple of other news items that we will surely be addressing tonight. Of course, if you might have forgotten, my name is Kaan Bayazit, and I'm joined today by Umut Nadere, Jakub Marofolo, and the returning conquering hero from Chicago, is there Ginger. Uzar, how's the riots over there in the US?
Yeah, I mean, it's some really surreal times I've been experiencing, to be honest. First with the coronavirus and the 10, 11 weeks of lockdown, like everywhere else, and then suddenly it just kind of exploded out into the streets. I was actually part of the protest a couple of months ago. I went up and to show my support and check everything out, and it was quite peaceful. It was quite something to be part of. I'm really glad I went down. It seems to have died down a little bit now. It's a little bit more contained into small pockets, but definitely some interesting times. I was actually wearing my Galatasaray shirt jacket rather than shirt when I was down there the other day. So if you happen to see pictures of Jim Bomb, we're a flag fielding guy in the crowd, that's me.
Well, I did see some pictures of a Beşiktaş fan as well there. It's good that the clubs are being represented there, of course.
Always showing our solidarity with people.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, it's horrible what happened, of course.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff happens more frequently, and it just tends to happen more often to, unfortunately, to somebody of a black skin color than it does to other people, and that's just not okay. That's just not right. And yeah, hashtag Black Lives Matter, and I say that with the utmost respect, of course, for everyone who feels victimized and who gets victimized in the US. And I heard a very interesting podcast with Kevin Smith and his compatriot, and they were talking about that unfortunately the USA is kind of based on racism, in the sense that it's ultimately a country that was based on the principle of getting free slave labor over, and it's so interweaved in the DNA of the country and kind of stuff like that. And it got me thinking, that's actually an interesting point. Like, for example, England and I don't know exactly how it was in the UK, but like, for example, here in Belgium, Leopold the third did go to Congo and definitely did a lot of atrocities there, but he didn't, at least not in large scale to my knowledge, didn't bring slaves over here, and it's not it's not like a part of a culture that they're 150 years ago every household had a black slave or something like that, whereas in the US, of course, 170 years ago, especially in the South, most households had multiple slaves, and that's something that I guess you just don't erase over a century or two even. But yeah, enough of that, I think. But it's cool that you went there and showed your support to the people, and hopefully, Donald Trump will stop fucking around on Twitter, doling out threats to people, and actually do his job as a president and take care of his people, and all of his people, not just the rich. white old men. Jakub, how have you been? How you been holding up the last couple of weeks?
Well, I mean, I'm alive, so that's a good thing, I guess. But
No need to the throat for you.
no. It's okay here. It's like it's starting to die down a bit. There was a huge protest in Rotterdam today about what happened in the US.
Mm-hmm.
But like Corona-wise, I think it started to become a little bit more lenient. A lot of places have opened, like barbers and stuff, and that helped me a lot because I really look. Do you know that one scene in Jumanji when they finally reopened the game and Robin Williams just pops out and he's like, "What year is it?" I pretty much look like that, so that was good. For the rest,
got a home haircut last week.
Oh, you know what? I still haven't had a haircut either. But more pressing for me is my beard cut because I have a razor and I normally just trim it, but I've just let it grow. So I'm like 9-10 weeks in with a very thick and juicy beard right now. I'm growing quite fond of it.
You can ask that to me.
Pictures.
Last time I cut my hair was like 6 or 7 months ago, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah, like it's been growing ever since.
Actually, yeah. Kim shaved the sides of my hair, and a couple of months ago she cut a little bit off the top because I have long hair on the top as well. But no, my beard has been trimmed and everything, so I look presentable. We had some important stuff to do over the last couple of weeks. On Friday, we signed papers for a piece of land. Yesterday, we went to the bank to sign mortgage, I guess you call it. Is that a mortgage? A loan, a bank loan, whatever. So hopefully we can start construction works in the next 6 months or something like that, so we can finally get to building. Because we've been holed up in the house here for 2.5 years, wanting to do something here, but we're not allowed by the local government because blah, blah, blah, blah, blah. But whatever. So big things happening there too. Umut, what about you? How's life in Turkey now that you're back from the UK for a while?
Well, nothing is different since I came here because I haven't left my home. I only left my home like 3 or 4 times since I came here, just to meet with some of my friends and not to get any risk to myself about getting infected outside. So I've been a little bit more careful than I used to be, and also my dad and mother are also going to the hospitals every day to work. So for that, actually, as they are leaving home every day, they bring all the stuff when they're like coming home.
Yeah.
So that left me without any needs to leave or outside. So.
Oh, I thought you meant that there's a risk of them bringing the contamination to you.
yeah, that has that risk, but also they are dealing with the stuff to be bought for home stuff. So that leaves me without any needs to.
But
go
you
outside.
couldn't find proper sujuk in the UK. Have you been making up for that? Have you been eating?
And rakı as well.
I'm sure you can find that if you look properly.
Yeah, but it takes a little bit more going into it.
Maybe when you're back,
well.
When you're back in the UK, one of our listeners can take you out for some sujuk and rakı.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, it's been a bit crazy. What is it? 2-3 months now. When did the competition get halted? When did it stop?
I came here in 24th of March. So 5 days later than the Galatasaray Beşiktaş game.
Okay. So then, mid-March was the last game.
Yeah.
It's been what's that? That's the third month, so we're on to the 6th month now. So it's let's say 2.5 months. So 2.5 months, no football. How much are you guys looking forward to the league starting up again, even if it is without fans?
Oh God, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. After the first couple of weeks when they were touting coming back to football without fans, I thought, oh, I'd rather not bother. But we've been deprived of it for so long now. I'm so thirsty for action. I'm so craving for the drama that even without fans, I can't wait. I can't wait at all. Although I must say, I did have to refresh my memory where we were in the league standings before coming off the show. I forgot that Trabzon and Başakşehir were on equal points at the top two of the league.
Yeah.
And Gala are 3 points behind. So I just have to kind of refresh my memory of to where we left things off.
Yeah, for me, it's still fresh in my memory. I just know that we're 9 points back from the leaders. So 6 from Galatasaray. And I think then Sivasspor are on, 52? 51? Or right there.
49, actually. 49.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so football starting up again. Jakub, how do you feel about it? Are you salivating at the thought of seeing your Trabzonspor, seeing King Sørloth, the King of the North, in action again?
I mean, I was until,
no spoilers.
I don't know, man. I have to be honest. The Bundesliga restarted and everything, and I haven't really watched the game because I'm used to, having people over or going somewhere to watch a game, and you weren't able to, so it felt really weird for me. But I'm happy that the Super League is back because we were having a great season, and I can't wait to see how we fuck it up. As is tradition wise, but I'm kind of scared of things like injury issues and stuff. But like overall, I'm just happy that life is kind of starting to become normal again. In quotation marks.
Mm-hmm.
But the NBA is starting and football is starting. I'm just it's like you can't not be happy.
Mm-hmm. But you're happy too, I take it.
Yeah, I've been excited to hear this. We can watch football again, and as Jakub said, NBA is starting again, and we can have the best times of our lives after watching two of the best sports in the world.
Am I the only one that's been watching a lot of old stuff? Last week, I think I watched 20 something long ass summaries, 10-15 minute summaries of all of Galatasaray's matches in the 2002-2003 season,
to look for if we done any match fixing throughout the season.
I actually the reason is back then I did regularly watch, I think, Fenerbahce and Trabzonspor games because the people I watched with, was it like a Turkish cafe? I always watched with Fenerbahce and Trabzonspor fans. I never watched with Galatasaray fans because they were assholes. That's legit. That's legit true. They were assholes.
I get resented.
I thought you were about to say
some things
back
never
then.
change.
No. Where I watched, I didn't like. They were. I was like, how old was I? 15 years old or something. I was still like a kid, and the Galatasaray fans just weren't nice. They were really, this is coming off of the highs for Galatasaray, of course, and they were really like, I don't know, they had this air about them, and they were always I don't know, trying to fuck.
Are
with
they
you.
from another planet?
Anyway, so I watched a lot of Trabzon games in that era, and I watched a lot of Fenerbahce games in that era, but I didn't watch that much of Galatasaray. So I was just looking back at it, and I was just watching it, and I was just thinking to myself, wow, how did we win the league? Because they were really good that season too. And if you look at the league table that year,
that is the season I started watching football regularly. Regularly. So I witnessed my first ever games in that season, and I witnessed Felipe guy. For the so-called new Haji but he never make up for it. Like he only played like for like half of a season. Then Haim Revivo came into
Revivo,
Galatasaray, and in his first game, it was the Bursaspor away game.
And he scored a free kick, right?
He scored 3 goals. One of them were free kick, and
Yeah, I watched
he
that
also-
recently, so I remember.
yeah,
it.
yeah. And after that, he didn't score any more goals. Like
He didn't?
no, those are the only goals he scored for Galatasaray.
I've been watching a lot of the 2001 era Fenerbahce too, because I've been catching up on the old stuff. I don't know why. And Revivo and Rapaic, just watching a lot of that back, and Revivo's free kicks, and the championship match. I actually watched that like the day or two ago, like the championship game they had. Galatasaray's, Haji's retirement match. They won 4-0, and then Fenerbahce had to win away at Samsun. They came 1-0 down. They went 1-0 down. Galatasaray were already 2 or 3-0 up at the time. So at that scoreline, Galatasaray were champions. And then Fenerbahce turned it around with Yusuf Şimşek scoring, a young Yusuf Şimşek. So I was watching that.
Forever young.
Yeah, I was first I got like this suggested video on YouTube. For Galatasaray's retirement, Haji's retirement match. I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch that, and then
It's the Trabzon game, yeah.
it was a Trabzon game, yeah. And so that while I was
He
watching
scored distance shot.
yeah,
like,
he scored 2 goals, gave an assist, and I was just thinking while watching it, like, why did he retire? I mean, clearly he could still go for at least another year.
Or that he says that like after the minute he says that I didn't want to train anymore. I decided to quit.
But the thing is, like, for example, if you compare Shifo Mehmet, who retired at the same year, I think, a similar age. I think they were both like 38 or something when they retired. When you look at Shifo Mehmet's career trajectory, like, he had like 1 or 2 seasons before that, he had like a really good season with lots of goals. But then, like, that last season, you can noticeably see like a big drop off in productivity. But Haji still, he could still go. And it's funny because he stayed in football up until now. He's still very active in football. He clearly loves it a lot. It's weird to see that a guy like that just hangs it up if they can still physically go,
But I think the Galatasaray board somehow forced him into continue playing after we won the UEFA Cup back in 2000. Like, I think he might have quit after he won the best cup in his career. And like,
didn't he win a Champions League with Barcelona in '93? No, wait. No.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know about it. But
No. Marseille won the Champions League, I think. In '93.
He qualified for the finals in Champions League back in 1988 after
Which stopped.
having before that in the semi-finals they beat us.
Yes, 4-0. It was a thumping, wasn't it?
Yeah. And Haji scored against us.
I'm gonna come back to this, by the way.
History.
I'm gonna come back to this in a little bit about George Haji. There's a reason I wanted to talk about that, why I brought it up now, but we're gonna get back to that later. So that's how do they call that? Like in a movie when they. Whatever. Anyway, let's talk about it. So the league is starting again. We said we weren't sure if it was ever going to happen, but now it looks like it's going to. Pretty sure it looks like it's going to happen, even though we still had plenty of corona cases over the past couple of weeks. Beşiktaş had 8 confirmed cases. Those were mixed staff and players, I think. I think Alanyaspor or. What was Alanya? I think Alanyaspor had 3 the other day, like last week or something. Obviously, Fenerbahce has had at least Max Kruse. Trabzonspor haven't had any, I think, right? And no confirmed cases. And neither has Galatasaray, I think, except for, of course, Fatih Terim.
No, Trabzonspor is clean. No, I didn't even mean it that way. I swear I didn't mean it that way.
Okay, so we're going to continue this coming the weekend after that, the weekend of the 12th of June. So I'm just quickly going to get up the match day here. The fixtures.
Alanya had 3 cases today or yesterday because they're playing Başakşehir.
Oh, okay.
They won the reopening
So
in Istanbul.
It's gonna
So they'll bring it with them.
it's going to be match day 27 next week. Starting on Friday the 12th of June, Göztepe will be taking on Trabzonspor. Fenerbahce will be hosting Kayserispor. Başakşehir, as I already alluded to, will be taking on Alanyaspor. Beşiktaş are hosting Antalyaspor. And then the final match on Saturday, Yeni Malatyaspor are hosting Kasımpaşa. Then on Sunday, what am I doing? Then on Sunday... Sunday. Yeah, here we go. Gençler Birliği are up against Konya. Çaykur Rize host Galatasaray, and Gaziantep host Ankaragücü. And then finally on Monday, Sivasspor are playing against Yukatil Denizlispor. Now, one interesting thing, for example, Gaziantep, they lost a couple of players already. Kayode, I believe, left already. Maxim left already. These were guys that were on loan. Their contracts expired on the 31st of May because obviously normally the season is over at that point already. Turkish clubs, the contracts they make with players, they run until the 31st of May. If you go on Transfermarkt, it will say 30th of June, but that's incorrect. If you go on the TFF website, you can see the accurate expiration dates of contracts, and it will always say the 31st of May. A couple of years ago, I think it was the season where we had the Super Finale, where the season went a little bit longer. I think that was at least that season. Then we played past the 31st of May, and I don't remember hearing of a single case of a player leaving prematurely then. But now Maxim left, like I said, Kayode left, maybe some other players are leaving. I don't think it's going to be a big thing. I don't think we're going to see a massive exodus of players. But I do think that, for example, some clubs that are probably safe from relegation or in the mid-table aren't going to be able to qualify for Europe anymore. I'm not surprised maybe that some of them are releasing loanees or players that are on end of contract. They are releasing them already because obviously, we're already in a lira crisis. Now the coronavirus has further impacted the economy in a negative way. It doesn't surprise me that these clubs maybe don't want to pay players for another month or two during a period where they could probably be saving all that money. What do you guys think of that? That we have players leaving prematurely or rather? Of course, I think we spoke about last time. Loris Karius terminated his contract at Beşiktaş, but that's of course for other reasons. He wasn't getting paid. It's still a different case, but still. Any opinions?
Well, I know that the one I heard about is that Hasan Ali Kaldırım's contract is done.
Mm-hmm.
According to the TFF site and whatever.
Yeah.
Trabzonspor has some issues, with players like Sosa having been at the end of their contract. Their contract would be ending at the end of the season. Same with Novak.
Yeah, but you can always agree with the clubs can just tell the players, look, we're going to pay you for an extra month, and then it's all good. I think that's probably what happened in the 11-12 season, but the players don't want to.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That if there are players that have are at the end of their contract, that they just have like monthly contracts where they just play until the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unfortunate, but it's not something that you could even prepare for. It's really something that happened like once in a lifetime,
mm-hmm.
and it's as I said, it's unfortunate that some players leave. Unfortunate for the player, because they don't get paid, and unfortunate for the teams because they lack a player. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
You have to like row with the boat you have. So
yeah, I know the expression you're trying to say there. Roeien met de riemen die je hebt, maar how do you say that?
That's one.
How do you say
That's
that in
one.
English? Yeah, that's a question. The question then is, let's say for example Gaziantep. If you played Gaziantep 2 months ago, you played arguably a stronger team than you would now, simply because of the fact that some of their key players, like Kayode was a pretty key player. Some of their key players already left. Maxim had a great impact straight away when he came on. I think he came in January and he scored like a hat trick in his first match or something, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, it does give maybe a little bit of an unfair advantage to clubs that play them after now. But like you said, Jakub, sorry, it is a exceptional situation that let's hope we won't have to go through again. Hopefully next season can just go off without a hitch and finish for us. Go start to finish without any unscheduled delays like this season. Anyway, some clubs are doing this. I know Beşiktaş are. I think Fenerbahçe are too. They are selling online the ability for fans to buy a quote unquote a ticket for these remaining home matches, where if they buy it, I think it costs 127 lira or something like that. You can have your picture put up in the stadium on a seat, basically, basically be there supporting the team, so to speak, for those remaining home games. For Beşiktaş, those are 5, I think. I don't know if it's the same.
Do you need a pasta link for that?
You don't need a Paso League. But they do ask for a TC Kimlik number. You can also get one without a TC Kimlik number, but you do need a Turkish phone number and an address. That's the only disadvantage of it. But you can basically, get your picture put up in the stadium. And another thing that was being done, which I would like to get your guys' opinion on, is, did you watch any of those Bundesliga matches? Because I believe in the United States, week 1 they didn't do this, but I believe in week 2 they piped in stadium noises, for the people watching on television to have a more immersive experience. Because, unfortunately, we Turkish football fans have watched way too many matches in empty stadiums because clubs got, fined for whatever, swearing or something like that. And there's nothing more dreadful, I think, than watching a match in an empty stadium where you can hear all the echoes and all that kind of stuff. It is much more entertaining to have fan noises. What do you guys think? Should Digiturk be in sports pipe in some stadium noises during the broadcasts to give us a better experience?
I think that will ruin our experience because Turkish people don't have the ability to doing quality things.
I don't know. Maybe you're underestimating them. What do you think, Özer? Would you like that?
What about I think it might make more sense to have the fake sound pumped in the stadium to help the players out.
Yeah.
Because that way at least you're not eroding your complete home advantage. You have ra ra ra ra ra ra playing in the stadium makes a big difference for the players, bigger difference than to us.
Yeah. I like that idea. What do you think, Jakub? Should but then of course the margin for error is, well, you're probably running a bigger risk at the guy, whoever is responsible at the club, fucking up. I think I have more faith in the people at beIN Sports to do it properly than I do at the people at Beşiktaş, to be quite fair. Sometimes the production values aren't all that when it comes to those types of things. What do you think, Jakub?
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was going to say. I can just already see it where they just push the wrong button and like loud ass music is starting to play,
they concede a goal and then they press the cheers.
Yeah, something like that, and then I can see this happening in Trabzon. If that happened and we concede and they play like the happy sound, and they'll probably like find the guy and just like punch him or something because Trabzon. But I don't like it when stadiums are empty. It's a really weird sensation. But I also remember the times that I think it was a Trabzonspor Beşiktaş game or something where that time that they allowed like female and children supporters for free.
Yeah.
That was absolutely horrible.
Yeah,
the sound they produced.
Yeah.
I would rather have like an empty stadium than like have children and women.
We had a match against Fenerbahçe like that, I think.
They don't even know what an offside is.
Whoa,
So
whoa,
like
whoa.
they're like celebrating a goal scored from offside, and it's been like ruled out.
That's sexist, Umut. That's sexist.
No.
We're not going to.
Tut.
We're not going to partake in this male chauvinism that you are displaying here right now.
But I didn't see how they did it in Germany, but I don't think it's a smart thing to do in Turkey. I don't know. I don't see it just working out.
I think it's just they didn't do it in the stadium in Germany. It was actually the broadcaster, and for example, like the American feed had it, and like the normal feed didn't have it. I think so. It was really the Americans who were doing it the first time. I think then afterwards, everyone started doing it, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I personally am pro. I just have a hard time enjoying football when there isn't fan noise. But yeah, maybe that's just me. Anything left to add, guys, to the restart? How are the teams shaping up? Maybe any big missings that you can think of?
I'm curious to see how the players who haven't been training together properly for 2.5 months are gonna play. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see all those synergies between midfielders, for example.
Yeah, but they have been training for a while now, though.
Yeah, I know, but they've been training. I mean, I'm sure they'll be physically fit, but I don't know if the routines that they practice in training, if they ever practice routines in training, if there is any system in training. But assuming that there is, how much of that has been allowed to kind of develop and practice over the last couple of months, or if it's just going to be playground style football.
Yeah. Well, in Germany, it seemed like, but of course, Germans, there's like a German car that just it's always going to run well. But it seemed to go off like a hitch. I was really expecting those first couple of games that there were going to be players with physical deficits or something and just not going to be up for it. But it didn't seem to be a problem. Hopefully, fingers crossed, the same will be true in Turkey. It's going to be interesting to see how the team shape up. How were the forms going into this? Fenerbahce weren't in the best ways going into this break. Maybe this gave them time to reflect, and they'll be coming back stronger. Beşiktaş are without Loris Karius. Maybe some other changes are going to happen. Players are getting closer to, well, they are actually already past the end of their contract, so maybe some guys have already communicated that they'll be leaving after the season, stuff like that, so maybe different choices will be made in the lineups. It's going to be interesting to see if there's going to be any players that maybe are going to, I don't know, I would imagine if there were going to be players that were going to refuse to play, that they would have already done it, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how it turns out. But that's all for the weekend of the 12th of June, so that's still 10 days away from the time of recording this. So let's move on to our next subject, and that's a little bit less fun than actually news that just broke today, and it affects the current league leaders, Trabzonspor, who have been handed a ban for one season of European football by UEFA for some sort of They somehow failed to meet their financial fair play settlement requirements or something. Jakub, not much has been made clear about it yet. Trabzonspor have scheduled a press conference tomorrow, you told me, before we start recording. What do you think is the issue?
Well, I honestly don't know. The talk around town. I looked a bit on the UEFA site, and they don't even go into detail. They talk about like an agreement that they had with the team in 2016, which was back in the days that Muharrem Usta was the club president. So I have been looking around on Twitter and trying to find out. There are people that normally are, have a close connection to the board, that generally talk about stuff that happens in the board meetings, but I haven't heard anything about those. That I think that that the team has been blindsided by it today. Trabzonspor president and captain Aul and Sosa had like a whole press conference talking about how all the things that have been happening the last weeks with transfer rumors with Novak and Sosa leaving and stuff, and they didn't even like talk about uh, the financial fair play thing. So I think that they either didn't know about it or thought that not talking about it before it was published was better.
Mhm.
In the meanwhile, we all know that the all board has been doing some great things. The salary compared to the Muharrem Musta time is like really like pretty much half. The team has been getting a lot of sponsors. The salaries are being kept low, and pretty much like everything is going okay. The financial statements they put out, where they were saying like that they had a surplus of like 23 million or like 100 million tele. So everything points to everything being okay. But I just, it pretty much blindsided everybody, and I just can't understand what happened. It is like Trabzonspor's thing to, fuck up a good thing. So, that's the thing. But while we were preparing to start the podcast, I have been looking through the financial statements. You can pretty much see all the financial statements that Trabzonspor published like over the last couple of years. You can find it all the way back to like 2010. You can find it on the site, and I have found a bit about. It is a financial statement from 2017, containing also the season of 2016. But I really can't really, my Turkish is good, but it could be
Yeah,
it could be that I'm missing something.
fiscal language is very complicated.
Yeah, it could be that I'm missing something, but the only things that I can see is that they are talking about like a 10 million deficit that has the maximum deficit can be 20 million for 2016, 10 million for 2017, and afterwards it just doesn't say anything about 2018 and 19.
That's nil then. Then it should be full break even.
Yeah, I guess. And you can look at the financial statements that the team pushed out over 2018, 19, and 20, and so on. And from what I've seen, as once again, financial things, as you said, are the language is just a bit different. It could be that I'm just misunderstanding stuff, but I really can't see anything in the deficit. So it's just unbelievable. It
Yeah.
could be that I'm just being ignorant.
Trabzonspor were going to get banned last season, but then obviously there was a 50 million donation made, and they were able to qualify for Europe. Maybe, this is the only thing I can really think of. Maybe that's it. Maybe UEFA finally got wise to the source of the money and decided that's a problem. But then they should have done it then, I think. Seems a little bit unfair. Also, the timing is terrible.
And I think the UEFA needs to be more transparent as well. They can't just ban a club on FFP grounds and not give any more information.
Well, they will give the information to the club itself. They're just not going to make those things public because that's things they want to discuss behind closed door. But the things that just kind of bother me here is that UEFA announced like a month ago that they were going to be extra lenient on financial fair play due to the extraordinary circumstances right now. And it just feels like a real dick move. To tell a club that are in pole position to get a Champions League ticket next season, for whom that will mean a significant difference in their coming future years, because that's a 40-50 million euro injection right there just for qualifying for the Champions League if Trabzonspor managed to bring that in. And they're basically just putting a bomb under that right now. I think under these circumstances, financial fair play should be temporarily suspended. I'm a big proponent of financial fair play. I think it will, in long term, well, at least the idea of financial fair play, the way they execute it isn't exactly always fair. But I think that given the circumstances right now, holding those things over the club's head on top of all the things they already need to worry about is just unfair. Plus, the timing is horrible. UEFA wants, at any cost, countries to finish their leagues. They even threatened leagues that were going to stop, like Belgium and the Netherlands. They threatened them from not giving them European tickets next season. They quickly backtracked on that, but they did make that threat. And then they really want countries to finish the leagues. And now, just before the league is about to start again, they're kind of putting a bomb under a team like that. It feels very, I don't know, it's just out of place. I think it's in very poor taste of UEFA to do that right now. Crickets. We are always talking about the impact that these kinds of things can have on the teams and on the morale of teams. So I definitely think it's going to have an impact. But could be potentially good news for other clubs. Başakşehir, Galatasaray, Sivasspor, Beşiktaş. If this is upheld, obviously Trabzonspor already announced that they are going to appeal this. But if this is upheld, that will mean that Beşiktaş would go to the Europa League currently in their current position, as they are currently 5th. And that might even mean that number 6 goes to the Europa League if Trabzonspor win the cup. So Alanyaspor or even Fenerbahce would still have an opportunity at going to Europe next season if Trabzonspor end up getting banned. I think appeal could still get this thrown out, hopefully for Trabzonspor. Interesting fact as well, I think in 2013 or something, 2012, Galatasaray went to the Champions League because Fenerbahce got banned, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. 2013, under Mancini.
Yeah.
Good times.
Good
time.
So this could be the second time Galatasaray plugged the benefits from a European ban in that sense. So maybe
just that we are.
Maybe Galatasaray just have some high friends up in UEFA or something that are saving their asses again.
That's what everyone likes to think. Both fans of Galatasaray and fans of rivals. It's the one thing we're united in. Derince.
Anyway, we will keep you updated on this situation as it progresses. Hopefully, Trabzon did say they would be going to CAS about this, and that should be looked at within the next month. So hopefully for Trabzonspor, something positive comes out of that. And then lastly, another subject, we have spoken in the past about the foreign limit being reintroduced. We have spoken out against it, but now over the last week or so, again, stuff are coming up, and it seemed like it was already being put out there like it was a definitive decision. There will be a new foreign limit implemented. Initially, it would be 8 + 2 + 2, which would mean 8 on the pitch, 2 on the bench, 2 in the stands. And then the season after, it will be brought back to 6 + 2 + 2, which basically is what we had for many years prior to that 5 + 3 + 2 thing we had for one season, which was absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, they're talking about bringing the foreign limit back, and it looked like it was already a done deal. But then the club's union president, I think it was yesterday or the day before, actually said, no, this is not a done deal. We haven't agreed to this. The clubs haven't agreed to this yet, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it does look like it's still high on the agenda. Of course, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan started pushing for this, like 2 years ago or something. I don't know why he decided he needed to get involved in football. He likes to have his finger in all the cookie jars, I guess. But it seems like ever since Erdogan talked about there being a need for a foreign limit, that first Yildirim Demirören, who was the TFF president, and now Nihat Özdemir, have been pushing behind the scenes to get a foreign limit introduced. First, Mircea Lucescu was used kind of as the puppet to, for the propaganda machine, so to speak. Now Şenol Güneş is the national team coach, and he has been carrying that torch further. It makes me lose respect for those guys because they allow themselves to be used like puppets in that way, because I really don't believe that what they are saying is 100% their opinions. But regardless, it does seem, Erdogan wanted it, so it keeps getting pushed. The clubs have in the past not really revolted, but at least they have kept it away. They have been able to keep it at bay. But is it inevitable for the foreign limit to return? What do you guys think of this suggested 8 + 2 + 2, later 6 + 2 + 2, and more importantly, the little caveat at the top of it that the clubs will not be allowed to sign foreigners older than 32 years old? Özür, I'm going to give you the floor first. What is your opinion on all of this?
Utter bullshit. I don't know where to begin dismantling this. I mean, we talked about this a lot in different forms over the years. The 32-year-old thing is a complete joke. On top of that, I mean, look, this whole thing has no serious logic or analysis behind it. It's just an arbitrary decision, full of arbitrary bullet points that it's just been decided on the back of a fag pack. I mean, it's our Turkish players who are coming out of the Super League are flourishing abroad. First of all, so many young players are able to go abroad without having the push of being signed by Turkish clubs, and they're doing really well. And this is the best time ever for Turks abroad, thanks to the free foreign rule that currently exists in the Turkish league. It's not like someone has come out and said, look, we've done all this research, we've done all this analysis, and we believe that if we impose this restriction on foreign players, we believe that in 2 years, this will be the beneficial result. In 5 years, it will be like this. In 10 years, our clubs will be financially healthy. Our Turkish national team will be great. X, Y, and Z are the expected benefits. But there's nothing like that at all. There's been no presentation, no analysis, no nothing. It's just a decision that's been made like a sledgehammer. And I just don't trust them. I feel that this solution, if it is as they're calling it, it's just completely disingenuous. And I don't believe there's any sort of football related like rationale or reason behind it. This is the same TFF who just last month said that the Champions League final will be played in August in Istanbul as planned, without any confirmation, without any announcement from UEFA, the organisers of the competition. But these guys just make a decision and make a statement and come up with it. Nothing they say can be trusted, A, and nothing they say has a real substantial value, B. And my fear, however, is that they'll go ahead with this rule, with this xenophobic rule, and set our football back 20 years again.
Yeah. Umut, what do you think about all this? The reason I brought Joe Chaji before, I think he came to Galatasaray at 32. Is that correct? Age 32?
Yeah, I think it's about right. He retired at 37 or 36. So
38,
like,
I think. Right? 38?
No, 36 or 37, not 38, because I think he like played 5 years, so it should be like 32 when he came here. So I think this is the rule to like avoid teams from signing stars like, you know, Drogba or like Van Persie kind. So like they don't come over here to just only to retire or like treat us like a Qatar team.
Yeah, but
I think that's ridiculous, because these are the kind of players that create excitement in the Turkish league. These are the kind of players that sign shirts that bring fans to the stadium, that give us excitement.
Yeah, I think you're right, but up to a point, because like when you call these players up to come to here and you pay too much money into them, and if they don't compensate to their worth, then you'll be in a financial crisis, like how Antalya Spor has been from the Eto to Nasri to Menes transfers.
Yeah, but that's a club living way beyond their means. That's a club who has barely a fan base, a proper fan base to speak of, and suddenly starts signing players on a $3.5 million contract. It's something that, if you look at the comparative, like Trabzonspor, Fenerbahce, Beşiktaş, Galatasaray, $3.5 million. That's their top earners. How can a club like Antalyaspor afford that? We've always said that's irresponsible. Of course, the big clubs have made plenty of irresponsible expenditures, but I do firmly believe that the reason the Turkish clubs, the top Turkish clubs, are in the current state they are in is because of the foreign rule, because for decades Turkish clubs had to overpay for Turkish talent, not just in terms of transfer fees, but also in terms of wages. The wages have skyrocketed over the past 15 years or so. I remember, when Fenerbahce lured Tümer Metin away from Beşiktaş, that's more than 15 years ago, and they paid him $2.5 million a year back then already, in like 2006, 2007 or something like that. We have been padding those wages because of how how important it was to get good Turkish talent, because you needed at all times to field at least 4 or 5. So you needed really good Turkish players, and you needed to overpay for Turkish players. If a club like Gaziantepspor had a mediocre left back named Ismail Koybaşı, you had to pay 5.5 million euros for that player. Whereas for 5.5 million euros, even in today's market, you could probably get a really good player. You could, for let's say 10 million euros or 8 or so, you could have signed Ianis Hagi. And then you have a 21-year-old top talent who was doing really well at Rangers when he went there. He didn't do so well at Genk, but he did well at Rangers when he went there. So, I mean, you could be signing really big, talented players for just a little bit more for the price of a Mehmet Topuz. And we've
like
discussed this.
Bruma, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, Bruma did well enough for Galatasaray, and they flipped him. They didn't make a profit, but
even he flops. He's in the age to compensate for his worth. Like you can sell him for some money.
If Van Persie flops, you're stuck with the
you're
contract.
Done.
Yeah, but the thing is though, I don't think that Turkish clubs are in the state they're in right now because in part, of course, they are in the state they're in because they paid way too high wages to Pepe and to Drogba and to Van Persie and I don't know, whatever, all these big name players that earn 5 million a year or whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think, let's say they have 3 players that are making more than 3.5 million a year. Let's say that's 10 million a year. But if we're looking at the total depths of clubs, we're looking at 400 million euros, stuff like that. Fenerbahce over 600, Beşiktaş 400, Trabzonspor 200. I don't exactly know how much Galatasaray are, but they're close to 400 too, I think. Those are mountains of depth, and I think those are more created by other issues. For example, the weak economy, obviously, but also just for systematically having to overpay for Turkish talent. I think that has a bigger impact because at the end of the day, you have to fill up a 22, 23, 24 man roster with Turkish players, and the majority of those players, unfortunately, aren't from our own academies. They are plucked away at Gençlerbirliği, at Gaziantepspor, at whatever, and they're all paid a lot. And by implementing a foreign rule again, if they're going to do that, they're just going to jack up the prices again. And these mediocre Turkish players, one will be getting to ask top wages again instead of, let's say, Emre Kilic, who is a really, really good player right now, doing fantastic for Sivasspor.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, in today's market, without a foreign limit, I don't think any Turkish club is going to offer him more than 1.5 million a year.
Yeah,
I don't think that the Galatasaray. Look, I think we would all like to have him on our team, but I don't think any of the clubs are going to dip down super deep in their pockets to get him. If you implement a foreign limit, that guy's going to earn 2.5 million a year. There's no
like how
it.
Alper Potuk did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's just and then you have that nonsense of the 32-year-old age thing. I brought up George Hagi before. Now, he was 31 going on 32 when he came to Galatasaray in the summer of 96. Ricardo Quaresma, when he came back to Beşiktaş in 2015, was exactly 32 years old. Look at the mileage Beşiktaş got out of him.
Yeah.
Look at how he performed for Beşiktaş in the Champions League. And how that lifted Turkey's reputation, Beşiktaş's reputation up. So are you telling me that Turkish clubs are not going to be able to get players like that anymore? What did Beşiktaş pay for Quaresma? 1.2 million in transfer fee, and they paid him 2 million a year, or 2.1 or whatever. I think his initial contract was even lower. He extended later for a higher wage because he was doing so well. I mean,
also we got like Ufaluji at the age of 33.
Yeah, Zago. Same thing. Plenty of examples. You need those types of players. Obviously, your team ideally is going to be made up out of 3-4 experienced players that know the ropes. In every line you want a good central defender, probably a good guy in midfield, and maybe one up top or in between the sticks. But then you fill that out with mid-20s to early 20s talented players That's how you do it ideally. Obviously, we see, that Beşiktaş the past couple of years had a really old team. Galatasaray now has a pretty old team. And we see that is a negative trend. Okay, I agree to that. But then incentivize playing younger players, but don't punish teams. Don't make it impossible for clubs to sign a player. Look, what if, let's say that Galatasaray are in the market for a number 10, and they have the choice between a 32-year-old, let's say Wesley Sneijder, and then they can't sign him because he's 32. So then they have to sign a 31-year-old. What's that guy's name that played for Trabzonspor and briefly for Galatasaray, the Portuguese guy?
Who?
The guy that played for Bursa. What was his name again?
Joshua?
Joshua.
Yeah.
So if you have the choice between a 31-year-old Joshua or a 32-year-old Wesley Sneijder, and let's say Sneijder is even asking the same wage, then technically you can't bring in the better player just because he's a couple of months older. This is all hypothetical, of course, but
yeah.
How silly is that? It's ridiculous.
No, like even if your team formation is like build up with young.
You cut out, Umut. We can't hear you anymore.
Is it better now?
Yeah, we can hear you again.
Well, okay, like if your team is built with youngsters and the only old players that you're like over 32-year-old, kind of player.
Mm-hmm.
If he fits in your team and game plan, and if your team will benefit out of it, he has to come.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, look even at the top teams in Europe. All the top clubs in Europe have at least one guy who is 32-year-old or older and who is key. I mean, look, Paris Saint-Germain, their captain is like 35. Ronaldo is how old is Ronaldo? He's
that's a different story because none of them sees their teams as the last resort before the retirement.
Yeah, but do you think that I mean, look at even Didier Drogba. Did he see Galatasaray as a last resort?
Yeah,
Yeah, man. You must have watched that Chelsea game where he sold us out.
He went back to Chelsea after, and he still had a long career in the United States. So clearly that wasn't his last stop.
If you can offer Champions League football, then that's enough. You're only retiring if you're going somewhere outside of UEFA, I think.
Yeah, if you go to China or something, which actually
did as well.
which actually Drogba did, but he returned after a couple of months because he didn't, because it wasn't to his liking. Sometimes, I mean, are you retiring? I think if you're going to China, there's an excuse because they were throwing for a while there. They were throwing such absurd numbers at players you couldn't refuse. I think if you're going to the Middle East, then you can talk about, okay, the guy is retiring. And I think there's a lot less stories of players coming back from the Middle East and revitalizing their careers than there is about players coming back from China.
I think there's none. Like, if...
Ryan Babel is the only one I can think of.
Ryan Babel went to the Middle East?
He went to Al Ain.
Oh.
Dubai, I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's one of the few I can think of. I mean, it's not like Raul came back. It's not like Cannavaro came back.
Xavi did and Raul did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's I think it's I get it where the thought comes from, but that feels like an idea from somebody who has no clue about football. That's about like a casual fan. Oh, the problem is all these old players, and I mean this is not a decision made by educated football experts that should be governing Turkish football. And I don't know. I mean, I hope at least that part of the rule. In fact, if it would stay 8 + 2 + 2, I wouldn't be that opposed to. I mean, I'd be okay with 8 + 2 + 2, but anything less than 8.
No. What's the deal with the second +2?
Yeah,
man? Why
it should be 8
pay a
+ 4.
player to just sit in the stands?
I agree. Yeah. Actually, the rule should just be if they're gonna do something like this, it should just be
8+4.
maximum 8 foreigners on the pitch at the same time, and then
Yeah,
the
like-
rest you just do whatever you want. You know,
Yeah.
if you want to have your bench full of foreigners, okay, fine. If one of your Turks gets injured on the pitch, bad luck. That's your gamble. You know, I think that's better. I don't think it's negative to expect teams to field 2 or 3 Turks at minimum. I think that's okay. But I think there's different ways of doing that. There's ways of incentivizing that. I think if a team opts to play with 11 foreigners, that's their right. Maybe at the end of the day, at the end of the ride, when the league is over, they get less prize money. You know, like 5% less or something.
The problem with this rule is that when you can just buy a foreigner for a spot, for a position, when you have the limit, you have to go for the Turkish one. And by that, it just decreases the opportunity of Turkish players going to the Europe. Because Turkish players just go to the big 4 clubs.
Yeah, 100%. And another thing, Beşiktaş right now are being linked to, you'll know him, Jakub, Aitor Cantalapiedra from FC Twente. He just left Twente, actually. He's a 24-year-old player, played for Barcelona's youth, blah, blah, blah. Young winger. This season, 7 goals, 6 assists. Last season in the second division, he had 13 goals and whatever. So, talented player, not a top talent, but an interesting opportunity. And if I'm looking at the numbers that I'm reading right now, because he's being linked to some Greek clubs too, and they're talking about a wage of 400,000 euros. That's literally what a youth, like a Turkish youth, made. Like, we got Güven Yalçın from Bayer Leverkusen, and he's earning 400k. And he only played in the regional leagues in Germany, and the only reason he's earning that much money is because he's a freaking Turk. And that's without a limit. Imagine what it's going to be with a foreign limit.
I mean, it's just if you want your sport or your team or football as a whole in Turkey to grow, the worst thing you can do is put a limit on anything. You have the financial fair play stuff, which I think is a good thing. Because otherwise we would have teams bankrolling, rich owners bankrolling the team. But if you think about it in a way that you want the most performance on the pitch, you want the best players on the pitch, having a foreign limit is the worst way to go through it. You will only as you guys already said, you will only bring up the value of Turkish players. Disproportionate to what they are worth. So you have players that you pay a lot of money for just because they're Turkish. I remember that there are I think it was China. China has a system where they have a lot of that their population is really big, so they try to educate the players, the young players. They want to have a great young player basis. So they have a weird rule that at least 2 players that are on the starting 11 have to be youngsters, under the age of 18 or 19. And it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. These are the things that, we know that Turkish people are nationalistic by nature. The thing that probably a lot of Turks like more than anything is watching Turkey play and getting all into that nationalistic, mindset of, we are better than you. So I think that the decisions for this, with Erdogan being at top, are just made without even thinking it through. I think that the decisions are being made by people that don't really know a thing about football, don't really think about the consequences that it might have. Turkish teams have been doing so well over the last couple of years, and one of the factors that helped it become so good is that there wasn't a limit on the amount of foreigners you can have. The nationalistic guy in me says okay, it would be great if we had 11 Turkish players on the pitch and you become champion. But the reality is that that isn't able. You aren't able to do that at the moment.
I think it is possible, but then you're going to drastically lower the level of the league. I don't, look, if you look at any success that Turkish clubs have had in Europe in the last decade, look at Osmanlıspor when they had their great run in Europe. I mean, how many Turks were they fielding? Like Musa Çağran, Numan, I guess the goalkeeper. Who was the goalkeeper back then? Wasn't that the old guy, Altay? Was his name Altay?
I honestly don't know.
No, he used to play for Kocaelispor back in the day.
Who?
The old goalkeeper that used to play for Osmanlıspor. Not Kerçemaskas, but the one before.
What was his name?
Anyway, like they had like 3 or 4 Turks, and then look at Beşiktaş when they were successful in Europe the last couple of years. Like the reason they were successful is instead of Ibrahim Üzülmez or Ismail Koybaş at left back, they had a guy that actually played for Sevilla and Barcelona, Adriano, who was really good. And I mean, Beşiktaş always fielded like 2 or 3 Turks, but except for that match against Bayern, I think that's the only match that they didn't have a Turk on the pitch, and we lost. and look at the success Galatasaray have had in Europe this decade. I mean, that's all been in great part due to guys like Sneijder and Drogba, and of course Burak and Selçuk had their part, but Melo, Muslera, they had massive parts in that too. And then look at Başakşehir. Could you imagine Başakşehir getting out of the Europa League group without foreigners, or with only 6, with a maximum of 6 foreigners? Could you imagine that? I mean, how many?
I totally forgot about that.
How many?
Next stage playing Copenhagen. What's going to happen? We have no idea what's happening.
I have no clue exactly what's going to happen with that. But how many Turks are they fielding? İrfan Can, Mahmut. Who else?
Volkan in goal.
And the goalkeeper.
No, Volkan doesn't play anymore. Only Mert. Yeah, Mert. So Mert. Mert, Irfan Can, Mahmut. Their backs are both foreigners. Their central defenders are foreigners. Their wingers are foreigners. Their strikers are foreigners. I mean, come on. Doesn't make even if they let's say they were gonna do this 8 plus 2 next season. That's gonna cause a big issue for clubs straight away.
Oh, shut up, Khan. What do you know?
Oh, there's Burak. Imagine if Fenerbahce would have to play with at least 3 Turks. They would relegate.
Well, we've got loads of Turks, mate. We'll be fine. We'll just bring up all the young'uns. So yeah.
Yeah.
No problemo.
Yeah.
Fast track relegation.
Hey, they tried it last season and failed, so let's see them try it again.
Well, we'll maybe next season, eh? There's always next season.
One can hope.
It's nice of you to grace us with your presence.
Well, yeah, I was on a call and working with a client that's based on the west coast of America, so they're 8 hours behind, which makes it early in their day, late in my day. But hey, I'm grateful for work in these unprecedented, crazy times, so I am not complaining.
And are you looking forward to the restart of the league to see Fenerbahce back in action?
I am not really looking forward to football because it's soulless. Başakşehir are going to be used to it, of course, no fans. But it's going to be so weird to have the league restarted in a rush. I just hope they have continuous and rigorous testing before and after the games on all the players and the staff and the people who are there doing the TV shows and the production team, etc. But it's going to be a soulless end to the season. We've got really nothing to play for. Maybe a European spot if they go ahead with the ban for Trabzon. But, it'll be something to pass the time instead of watching old highlights. So
you've been doing that too, eh?
Well, what else is there to do, man? Apart from
I was talking about it at the top of the episode that I've been watching a lot of old Galatasaray and Fenerbahce stuff, like the Rahim Revivo Rapajic era kind of stuff. I actually watched Fenerbahce's championship game against Trabzonspor the other day because I was initially watching Haji's retirement match, and then I was like, oh wait, this was simultaneously Fenerbahce were playing, and drama and.
It's a special day. It's 16 years to the day that Alex signed, so there's a bit of nostalgia attached today,
You
and
make me feel old.
I found a old picture of one of the old Fenerbahce chairman Faruk Ulgaz handing or receiving a plaque from Metin Oktay. I'm like, oh, that's nice. Back when there was rivalry and sportsmanship, but none of this other shit show going on. So yeah, we know nostalgia, but you know what Dwight Schrute from The Office says is nostalgia is humankind's greatest weakness, apart from the jugular. So.
Okay, well, we were just finishing up. Actually, we were talking about the proposed foreign limit that's being floated around there: 8 + 2 + 2, going on to 6 + 2 + 2, and the 32 age time limit. The 32-year-old age limit for foreigners. Quickly, your thoughts on it, Burak, if you want to chip in your Iki Kurush.
Well, the age limit is ridiculous. I mean, how they decided on 32? I think they smoked a bunch of weed and spun a wheel and were like, 32? Yep, that sounds about right. But if it was 32, then we would never have had players like Carlos or Drogba. Mm-hmm. I don't think Anelka was 32 when he came.
No, he wasn't. He was 26 or 27, actually.
Yeah, so other players who come, for a bit of a cameo in Turkey. On the other hand, you've got people saying, well,
Pepe.
They should have come for a payday. But I think, putting an age is just ridiculously ageist. And it will just make players think, 32, fuck off. I'm not going to the Super League. And as for the foreign rule, we've discussed this a few times before. And 8 + 2 + 2, it's like, what about the two players that are going to be not even on the bench that you're paying? I think there was Nihat Özdemir he's a bit of a twat. Anyway, someone said, what about the two players you're paying that can't even be on a bench? That might be looked into. But any kind of restriction will only, I think, be detrimental to the league. I mean, people say like, oh, but there are teams with no Turks in the starting lineup. It's because they're not fucking good enough. And with the advent of these P players coming in, it'll make them up their game.
Sure. I mean, if you look at Galatasaray, for example, before Emre Akbaba came back from injury, is there really a Turk that you can think, well, he should be playing?
Ömer Bayram, probably.
He claimed this spot for sure. But I mean, at the start of the season, when they were starting like 11 foreigners, the only thing I can think of is, okay, that's fine, but why aren't kids like Yunus Akgün getting chances in the cup and stuff like that? And that is definitely something different. But that's down to the coach and the coach's choices, And that's not something Fatih Terim isn't going to be there forever. And the next coach may give lots of opportunities to youth players. And maybe there's stuff we don't know. Maybe those kids don't work their asses off in training and they just don't deserve the chance. We don't know.
Or they might be sending tweets like Mustafa Kapı. So who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it will only be a detriment to the league, and it will inflate players' prices like the Mehmet Topuz's and Alper Potuk's. Yeah. And who's that? Who's that? Tarık Çamdal or someone? He's not even worth half of the fucking.
He was the worst of the bunch. Yes. I think at least Alper and Mehmet Topuz had some value and contributed a little bit. Topuz was a good versatile utility player that you used for many years. You just overpaid him and paid too much. But I mean, he wasn't a bad player.
Not at all.
But Tarık Çamdal, he just earned 5, 6, 7 million, did absolutely nothing, and now is playing for a minimum wage at Adana Demirspor, if I'm not mistaken. Last I heard.
How the mighty fall.
Yeah. But he doesn't need it anymore. He's sitting on 5 mil. Anyway, I think we will be following, of course, this situation and, of course, the league closely, and we will be soon returning to a weekly schedule. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Hopefully the clubs union, the club presidents all say no and just give Nihat Özdemir the middle finger. Can I get an amen?
Amen. And I'm sticking my middle finger in the air right now.
I'll give you a Bismillah.
We should do video just for this episode, just for that. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for your time, but we've kind of run out of time, so I want to thank all of you for joining me this week on the Football Alla Turca podcast. Soon we will be back with weekly coverage of the Turkish Super League. Thank you very much for listening. Özar, thank you very much for joining us live from Chicago. Jakub, thank you very much for joining us live from Rotterdam. And Umut, thank you very much for joining us live from Istanbul. And of course, Burak, thank you very much for joining us briefly, but still, thank you very much for joining us from your Shisha lounge. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.
Goodbye.
Ciao.
Bye.
We're back, listeners. We're back, bitches. We're back in your ears. Stay tuned.
Get
for
used
more
to it.
Turkish football action. We're back, baby. Come on, bring on the fights.